America's imposed sanctions. Those sanctions mean that the oil corporation that Chavez imposed when he nationalised it is losing £11 billion a year. Now that's an appalling impact on their economy.
When were the US oil sanctions imposed?
I can't remember when it started.
Well, I'll tell you when.
All right, good.
They were imposed this week.
No, that was the latest.
No, until then there have been no oil sanctions on Venezuela. Indeed, the United States, until this week, was Venezuela's biggest exporter of oil. The 600,000 barrels of oil a day were exported from Venezuela to America. There have been no oil sanctions.
There have been sanctions on Venezuela, just like there have been on Cuba.
What else were there?
Like there are on Nicaragua, like there are on Iran. And these are illegal
Tell me what
under
they were.
International law.
Tell me what... So the Venezuelan economy has shrunk by 50% in 5 years. What US sanctions caused that?
Well, in the first place, there was the collapse of the oil price. That was damaging.
That's not a
but
sanction.
American sanctions then
what were they?
damage. I don't know. I've been retired pensioner. I haven't got staff.
No, you've been saying... No, excuse, this is quite important, because as we speak tonight, children in Venezuela are starving to death. So you say it's
sanctions. They wouldn't be
but
starving to death.
Well, which sanctions?
They've had sanctions for years.
No, they haven't.
No, they have. And
I'm sorry.
I know that because that's what the Venezuelan ambassador told me.
Well, he may tell you that, but
yes.
But let me tell you, the first sanctions were introduced in 2015 by President Obama. Not for years. 2015. And they were aimed then solely at regime members suspected of corruption and human rights abuses. That was all. Their assets were frozen. That cannot bring down an economy nor create hyperinflation. So I ask you again, what US sanctions have caused this collapse in the economy?
American sanctions are illegal under international law. They're illegal, the sanctions against Iran.
You're not answering the question.
No,
the question is what sanctions could have caused this. Sanctions against individual members of the regime who are suspected of corrupt practices and human rights abuses could not cause an economy to collapse by 50%.
Well, all I've got is the information I had from the Venezuelan ambassador that the sanctions imposed on the main oil company, publicly owned in Venezuela, is costing their economy $11 billion a year.
There was not a single trading sanction on Venezuela. You could export or import anything other than arms. There were no restrictions. And at the same time, Venezuela got $80 billion in loans from China and Russia. So why did the economy collapse?
Because you've had, in the first place, a collapse of oil prices, and then you had the American sanctions, and you may have got information there that says there haven't been sanctions, but when the Venezuelan ambassador here in London talks to me about those sanctions, I believe what he's saying.
Which you
can't
name.
Those are his family. They're people out there, as you said, children are dying of starvation, children are dying because they can't get the medical imports that would have been coming if America hadn't imposed it. And this is nothing
But you've
new.
not been able to establish any American sanctions until this week. They did introduce oil sanctions this week, but that can't replace the collapse in the economy.